In the earlier classes, just we have seen how servlets work. Okay. Until now, we have developed a web application either in Eclipse or in the location where Tomcat server is there. Okay. We have seen how to develop a web application in Eclipse or in the location where Tomcat server is installed. But in general, we won't do that. We won't develop a web application where the Tomcat server is located. Okay? So, let me cut this web application into some other folder. Let me develop an application here, somewhere else. Okay? Let me develop my application somewhere else. Okay? So, and SRC is there, classes are there. I'll develop my application somewhere else. I'll compile that, and what we'll do is create a jar file. Create a package. How we'll create a package? Let us see. Go to this location. To create a jar file, we use jar command and options -cf. C means create a file, F means the location of the file. Okay. I'm creating a file with the name hello-app.var. Okay. hello-app.var. Going one step back, I'm creating a var file with the name hello-app.var. Earlier, for standalone applications, we used to create a complete package using a jar file, a executable jar file. Okay? Just because it is a standalone application and the extension is Java archive. Here, if you want to develop an application, okay, as a package, this package is not the Java package. If you want to develop or deploy an application as a setup, okay, earlier in case of standalone application we used jar files, executable jar files. Those are called as Java archives. Now in case of web applications, those are WAR files, WAR, web archive. So whenever we deploy or distribute any web application, that web application will be distributed in the form of WAR file. Okay? Any web application will be distributed in the form of a WAR file. Now to create a WAR file from the command prompt, we use the command jar. Jar space -cf space the location in which you should create the WAR file. Okay? And what are the contents of the WAR? Okay, it is created. Now let me see the WAR file. This is my WAR file. Okay? This is my WAR file. Let me copy this WAR file and now First, let me delete that web application. Hello. Now in this web app folder, is there any web application with the name Hello app? Is there any web application with the name Hello app? No. So let me paste this hello app.var. Okay. Now is there any folder with the name Hello app? In this web app folder, is there any folder with the name Hello app? No, there is no folder with the name Hello app. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll try to start the server. What happened? Which web application? In some of the web applications there is a problem. In which web application there is a problem? Deploy where? No. Data. Let me delete that web application. Data. For now. Or else let me correct that mistake. Starting tag is there but not ending tag. Let me start the server. So, you see here, when we start the server in web apps folder, do we have hello app folder? Yes or no? Now let me delete this. This is deleted. Okay, let me stop the server. If I stop the server, well, stopping again it was created. Now my server is stopped and there is no hello app folder in my web app folder. So when I start the server, what happened? Hello app folder exists. Okay. Now in the same scenario, in the same syntax. Understood? So what does that mean? When we deploy a var file, it will be automatically unzipped into a web application. Okay? If we deploy a var file, it will be automatically unzipped into a web application folder by the web server. If we develop a var file, it will be automatically unzipped into a web application folder when the server is started. So in general, 99% scenarios, no one will develop the application in the Tomcat server location. We'll develop application somewhere else. Okay, but we deploy application in web apps folder of Tomcat. Okay, like this. Just create a var file. In general, if it is a command prompt, create a var file using the jar command. jar-cf, the location where we should create the var file, and the contents star. Okay, just we create a var file. Once we create a var file, what we do is just we copy the var file from that location. We copy the var files from the location, paste it into web apps folder, paste it into web apps folder. Once we paste it into web app folder and restart the server, okay, automatically, okay, with the content exists in the var file, okay, a new web application is created in the web apps folder. A new web application folder is created in the web apps folder. Automatically it is done by the server itself when it is started. Okay, so we won't develop application in the location of Tomcat server. Okay, we develop application somewhere else. Just we deploy the application. We deploy the web application in the form of var file. Understood? Deployment is just putting the jar file or putting the var file into web apps location. Okay, deploying a web application is nothing but putting a var file into web apps folder. Okay, we won't develop the application in a Tomcat server location. We develop the application somewhere else, but from there we deploy the applications into web apps folder, so that on a server startup automatically the web application folder will be created. Okay, web application folder will be created from this what we call var file. Understood? So that's how we do in general. Okay. Now, how we can do that from Eclipse? Okay. How we can? Sorry. How we can do the same thing from Eclipse? How to deploy a var file in a web application using Eclipse. How to deploy a var file in a web server using Eclipse. So this is my web application. Right click this, export. There will be an option export. Okay. Export as a var file. Search var here in the search field. Okay, and what is the destination? Where we need to export? Browse. E. Okay, go to E. It's E. Tomcat 6.1. Do you want to export the source files or not? In general, we won't export source files. SRC folder will not be exported. We won't export source files. Web application contains HTML files, JSP files, configuration XML files, and .class files. .java files will not be exported to var file in general. So, by default, source files will not be exported. If you want to export, we can export it. But in general, we won't do that. Okay? Override existing file. Yes. That means if there is any var file with the same name, we need to override the existing file. Okay? Finish. So, if you see here, in web app folder, there is another folder, Eclipse web app. Automatically, if since the server is in start mode, okay, automatically the folder Eclipse web app is created. Understood? So we can execute directly from the browser like this. So it's executed, and since the content type is some word, just automatically the content response is displayed in the word document. So something happened, we could able to access the web application. So this is how we do in general. If we deploy it in Eclipse, or if we develop the web application in Eclipse, okay, deploy as a WAR file into Tomcat location, Tomcat web apps folder. If you deploy or if you develop the web application at some other place, okay, like this folder, then develop a WAR file using the jar command and deploy the WAR file into web apps folder. But the ultimate thing is the way how we develop web applications is, once we develop web applications, in order to test that, we need to execute that web application in the browser, so that the web application should exist in the web apps folder. So what we do is, you have to develop a web application in the web apps folder, okay, or we have to deploy the web application in a web apps folder, okay. What we do is, we create a WAR file, web archive, which will be automatically unzipped, okay, by the Tomcat server itself or any web server. So we develop the web applications, compile the source files, okay, and we deploy the web applications as WAR files in the web apps folder of web server. Either it is from Eclipse, or it might be from any local system, okay, any local path, okay. We won't develop the applications in the Tomcat server location. We develop the applications at some other location, deploy the web application as a WAR file in the web apps folder of Tomcat server. Understood? If we take any software development will not develop the web application in the server location. They will develop the web application somewhere else and deploy that web application in the form of a WAR file in the web apps folder of Tomcat server. Understood? So first what we should do, we should develop the application. Next step, compile. .class file will be generated. Okay. Third step, create a WAR file. Fourth step, deploy the WAR file into web apps folder. Fifth step, stop the server. Sixth step, again start the server. So these are the steps that we do manually in general. Okay. But rather than if you do them manually, there are two problems. The first problem is a manual resource is required. Okay, a person is required to do everything. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is it will take more time. First we do compile and then we go to that location, we perform the jar file and we go to some other location. So this is a manual thing and will take more time. Okay. Second thing is it is manual. So the third thing is, let's consider like there are 100 steps in the process. There are 100 steps in the process. Like we compile the application, create a WAR file, copy that WAR file in the web apps, stop the server and start the server. These are 5 steps only. But in some complex applications there might be 50 or 100 steps. Is it possible to remember all those 50 or 100 steps? We may or may not remember. Even we may remember, there is a chance that we may do mistakes. That instead of executing 49th step, we may execute 50th step. Or let's consider like there are 2 persons who know the process and they have left the company. Then how the remaining persons will come to know what is the process? So to overcome these difficulties, in general what we do is, we depend upon, okay, if there are multiple tasks involved in building an application, either it is a standalone or web application. If there are multiple tasks involved in building or developing or deploying an application, okay, we go for building tools. So what building tools means whatever the process that we are doing manually, we can automate them. Okay, we can configure that processes inside some XML files, and if you run that XML file automatically, the building tool itself will do all the stuff, compiling, okay, putting the .class files into classes folder, making a var file, deploying a var file into web apps folder. Okay, all these steps will be automatically done by the building tool, but we need to make a one-time configuration. If we make one-time configuration, automatically we can execute that that configuration setup any number of times. So it will take very less time. Let's consider, like if you want to do that manually, it may take 1 hour. But if you want to do through a building tool, it will take just 2 minutes. Okay, so that the building tool will make the development and the deployment very easy and very flexible. So we'll be discussing about building tools later on, but I'm telling the complete process how it will be. Using building tools, just we configure the steps or the tasks that we need to do. First, compile the application. Second, put the .class files into classes folder. Third, make a var file. Fourth, copy the var file into the web folder. Fifth, stop the server. Sixth, restart the server. So all these steps, rather than we doing manually, we can assign these tasks to a building tool, so that automatically the building tool will do all those things. Understood? So we'll see about building tools, and the leading building tool in market are related to Java technology and Maven. These are the leading building tools in the market. We'll discuss them later on, but you know the process how it will be. How the applications will be deployed means using building tool will build the application, okay, and we will deploy the package in, or we will deploy the var file in the web app folder of the Tomcat server if it is a web application, through the building tool itself, through the building tool configuration itself. Understood? We won't deploy the applications manually. Okay? We automate them, or we'll write a script, or we'll write a XML configuration for that, so that when we just through a simple command, we can execute that building configuration automatically. All the tasks that we do manually will be automatically done by the building tool itself. Okay? Now, that's how we can deploy web applications in web servers. Okay, in the form of var files. Okay, we'll discuss ins and outs of building tools later on. Okay, at some other point of time. Okay. Now let's start with JSP. Okay. Let's start with JSP. What is JSP? JSP stands for Java Server Pages. Java Server Pages. Now, let's consider that there is a servlet. If I want to make any modification in the servlet, what I need to do? If I want to make any modification and if I want to get the changes reflected, what are all the things that I need to do? Recompile the application, redeploy the application, restart the server. All the things we should do if you make any change. If you make any simple change, we should do all these things. Recompile, okay, redeploy and restart the server. Okay, and that's one of the disadvantages of servlets. Even if you make a simple change, we need to do all these things. It may take some minutes, okay, to get the changes reflected. That's one problem. The second problem is if you want to write any HTML code, okay, if you want to write any HTML code, what we need to do? We need to write into a hectic out.println. Okay, let's consider like if there are 200 lines in my HTML code inside the servlet, 200 out.println should be there. Understood? So it looks for a normal developer, okay, developer will be little bit confused or it will look weird for the developer, and it is not that much easy to find problems if there are problems. Okay, understood? So if you want to develop any HTML content in the servlet, as well as if you want to change any content in the servlet and make the changes reflected, it's very difficult if you go for servlets. Okay, to overcome these two problems, okay, we have JSP pages. Okay, we have JSP was implemented to overcome these two problems. Okay, the problem with servlets is major problems. A big problem with servlets is if you want to change anything and if you want to get the changes reflected, we should recompile, redeploy and restart the server. Then only the changes will be reflected. That's the first problem. The second problem is when we want to write some HTML code in the Java, HTML code in servlets. If you want to write HTML code in servlets, we should write in out.println. So, if you want to write 100 lines of HTML code, 100 times out.println should be executed. To overcome these two difficulties of servlets, JSP is implemented. JSP is also a dynamic web resource. Do you remember what is dynamic web resource? Do you remember what is a dynamic web resource? Do you remember what is a dynamic web resource? What, Sharat? What you guys are doing? Web application will not change. The content of the web resource will change. The content of the web page will change at the runtime. If the content of the web page changes at the runtime, then the corresponding web resource is said to be a dynamic web resource. Okay? Servlet and JSP both are said to be dynamic web resources just because the content of the web page will change at the runtime based on some business logic. But in case of HTML, we cannot do that. Whatever the content that is there in a HTML page, only that content will be printed. We cannot write any business logic with HTML. But we can execute some business logic and change the content at the runtime using dynamic web resources like servlets and JSP. But we had discussed in the first class itself. I don't know what you are doing. A dynamic web resource is a web resource whose change or whose content will change at the runtime. Okay? So, JSP is the combination of features of servlets and features of features of HTML. JSP is a combination of features of servlets and features of HTML. Let me develop a simple JSP page, okay, in this location. In general, we'll develop JSP pages parallel to HTML pages. Even though it is a dynamic web resource, we'll develop JSP pages parallel to HTML pages. JSP, as we told, it is a combination of servlet features and HTML features. We can write any HTML code in a JSP page. Just I'm writing hello, I am in JSP. Okay, let me develop a JSP page and save it in. hello.jsp in the hello folder. Okay, now I have developed a JSP page and I have saved it in hello.jsp. Okay, now let me try to access that. So JSP page is being executed. Okay. In order to make use of JSP page, did we compile or restart or did we perform anything? Did we compile the recompile the application? Did we redeploy the application? Did we restart the server? No. We want to make the changes of JSP reflected. We need not do anything. Okay. See, if you see here, I have made some changes in the JSP page. Okay, just I'll refresh the browser and get the changes reflected. Okay, so I need not to compile the application again. I need not to compile the application manually. If you change the content of JSP page, okay, change the content of JSP page, we need not to compile the application manually. Okay, so this is a JSP page with HTML features. So there can be a JSP page with a complete HTML code. Okay, just this is a JSP page with a complete HTML code. We don't have any business logic here, but we can implement some business logic in the JSP page. That's possible. Okay, JSP is a combined feature of HTML as well as servlets. It's a combined feature of HTML and servlets. We can write any HTML code directly in a JSP page. We can write any HTML code. Whatever the content that is possible in a HTML page, that content is valid even in a JSP page. Okay, whatever the content that is valid in HTML page, that content is valid even in a JSP page. We can write any HTML code in a JSP page. In addition to HTML code, even you can write some business logic that we write in servlets. Okay, so we call JSP as a combined feature of HTML code and servlet code. But the positive thing is we need not to recompile, redeploy and restart the server. We need not to do all these things. Okay? If we change the content of JSP page, we need not to recompile the application, we need not to redeploy the application, and we need not to restart the server. Directly a browser refresh is enough to reflect the changes. Understood? So, let me try to discuss some more thing about JSP. Understood the basic advantage of JSP? Why JSP is advantageous? So, now we have seen a JSP page only with some HTML content. Okay? Even we can write some business logic in the JSP page. How do we write the business logic, or where do we write the business logic in the JSP page? Okay? So, basically, a JSP page can contain HTML code, that's for sure. Okay? Along with the HTML code or HTML tags. Okay? Along with the HTML code or HTML tags. Okay? A JSP can contain some scripting elements. It's very important for interviews. What are the scripting elements in JSP, or what are the scripting components in JSP, or what are the components in JSP, or what are the elements in JSP? These are one and the same. Okay? What are the different scripting components, or what are the different scripting elements, or what are different elements, or what are different components? The question might be asked in any way, but the answer is the same. There are 4 types of scripting elements or scripting components in JSP. Okay. There are 4 types of scripting elements or scripting components, or development elements or development components, or components or elements, whatever we call. There are 4 types of scripting elements in JSP. The first one is scriptlets. scriptlets. Declarations, directives, expressions. These are the 4 types of scripting elements in JSP: scriptlets, declarations, directives, expressions. Okay. So now, before describing all this, okay, let me describe first about scriptlets. What are scriptlets? How we can write scriptlets and where we can write scriptlets. Okay. Just these are the 4 building blocks or building elements or scripting elements, whatever we call. Okay. Of a JSP page. Just let me develop a simple scriptlet. If you want to develop a scriptlet in a JSP page, just percentage end with space. This is a scriptlet. Okay. Less than percentage and percentage greater than. This is a scriptlet in JSP page. System dot out dot this I am writing a system dot out dot println. This is from a JScript script. Okay. Let me refresh the browser. Just to get the changes reflected, we need to just refresh the browser. That's it. I have refreshed the browser. Is this content printed? So can we achieve the same using servlets? On the browser refresh, are the servlet changes reflected? No. Servlet changes will not be reflected on the browser refresh, but the change that we do in the browser JSP page will be reflected automatically on a browser refresh. Understand? So this is a scriptlet, just less than percentage and greater than, percentage greater than. Within this, if we write any code, okay, then it is a scriptlet. And there is no limit to number of scriptlets. There can be any number of scriptlets. Okay, there can be any number of scriptlets in the JSP page. There is no limit for the number of scriptlets in the JSP page. There can be any number of scriptlets in the JSP page. There can be any number of scriptlets in the JSP page. So, just if you try to refresh the browser and see the console. See here, this is the first scriptlet and this is the second scriptlet. Okay, there is no limit for the number of scriptlets. We can write any number of scriptlets. Scriptlets are used to write business logic. Okay, scriptlets are used to write business logic in JSP page. Or simply we can tell that if we have some executable Java code, we write that executable Java code inside scriptlet. If you want to have some executable Java code, we write that executable Java code inside scriptlets. Understood? How? See, here it is a system which is a Java code. If it is a Java code, then if you want to execute some Java code, there should be a .class file, right? Can we execute a Java code without a .class file? Can we execute a Java code without a .class file? No, we cannot execute a Java code without a .class file. But how we could have now? Are we compiling this JSP page? Are we compiling the JSP page? No. We are not compiling the JSP page. If we are not compiling, there will not be any .class file. But how this is executed? This will be a basic question for any person. We are not compiling this JSP page, but how? How the system out is executed? Okay. Let me see in a WebApps folder. If you see the work folder in Catalina, localhost, there will be, now let me delete them. Let me delete all. All are deleted. Okay. Now let me refresh the browser. Okay. If I refresh the browser and see what happened, a folder with this web application is created. Okay, a folder for this web application is created. If you see here, org, Apache, JSP. Is there any .java file created? Is there any .java file created for the JSP page? Yes or no? Yes. Is there a .class file created for the JSP page? Yes or no? Yes. How it is created and who will create this? We will discuss. Okay? How it happens is, whenever we try to access a JSP page from the browser, okay? First it will check, the web server will check, okay, whether that web application exists in the work location or not. Okay? If not exists, then what the Tomcat server or any web server will do means, it will create web application in this work location. That's the first thing. Okay? In this work location, okay, this web application is listed in this work location. Okay. The first thing is, whenever we try to access a web application from the browser, if that web application doesn't exist in this work Catalina localhost location, then a new folder will be created, okay, in this work Catalina localhost. Understood? So, and again, if we are trying to execute a JSP page, okay, then what happens is the JSP page will be automatically converted into, or for each and every JSP page, okay, in this localhost web application folder, for each and every JSP page, okay, automatically a .java file will be created. Okay, for each and every JSP page, automatically a .java file will be created. Okay, let me open the .java file and see. If you see here, the .java file name is hello, or the class present in the .java file is final, and the class name is hello_JSP. Okay, and it extends to HTTP JSP page. Okay, this HTTP JSP page is a class. Okay, HTTP JSP page is a class which is a subclass to HTTP servlet. This JSP class, okay, or the class that is created by the web server for a JSP page, okay, is a subclass to HTTP JSP page. And this HTTP JSP base, again it is a subclass to HTTP servlet. Now, can we call this class as a servlet class? Can we call this class as a servlet class? Yes or no? What, Babu? Why you are dumb? Can we call this class as a servlet class? Yes or no? No. Why? See, if this class extends to HTTP JSP base and HTTP JSP base extends to HTTP servlet. Now, does this class extend to HTTP servlet? Yes or no? Understood my question? This class hello_JSP, which is created by the web server for a JSP page, is a subclass to HTTP JSP base. Again, HTTP JSP base is a subclass to HTTP servlet. If HTTP JSP base is a subclass to HTTP servlet, can we call hello_JSP is a subclass to HTTP servlet? Yes or no? Can we call hello_JSP as a subclass to HTTP servlet? Yes or no? Understood my question? HTTP JSP base is a class. That HTTP JSP base is a subclass to HTTP servlet. Understood? And hello_JSP is a subclass to HTTP JSP base. Now, can we call hello_JSP as a subclass to HTTP servlet? Yes or no? HTTP JSP base is a subclass to HTTP servlet. Even hello_JSP is also a subclass to HTTP servlet. Now, can I call this hello_JSP as a servlet class? Can I call hello_JSP as a servlet class? Yes or no? What, man? Tell yes or no. If yes, tell your reason. If no, tell your reason. Why you are dumb? Can we call this hello_JSP as a servlet class? Yes. This hello_JSP definitely will be a servlet class. Just because it extends to HTTP servlet indirectly. Just because it extends to HTTP servlet indirectly. Hello_JSP extends to HTTP JSP base. HTTP JSP base is a subclass to HTTP servlet. So indirectly this hello_JSP will become a servlet class. So this class which is generated by a web server is a servlet class. Okay? Is a servlet class. Okay, this is the code that is generated by the web server. So whenever we try to access a JSP page, okay, the content of the JSP page will be converted into a servlet class. Okay, or we can tell that a servlet class will be generated. Okay, a servlet class will be generated by the web server with the content of JSP page. Okay, whenever we try to access a JSP page from the browser, okay, a servlet class will be generated by the web server. A servlet class will be generated by the web server which contains the content of the JSP page. Which contains the content of JSP page. And the generated servlet class will extend to HTTP JSP page. The generated servlet class will extend to HTTP JSP page. Which in turn is a subclass to HTTP servlet. HTTP JSP page in turn is a subclass to HTTP servlet. Okay, and the generated class is public and final. Generated servlet class is public and final. Generated servlet class is public and final. Okay, and the generated servlet class name is the JSP name underscore JSP. So if the JSP page name is test.jsp, the generated servlet class name is test underscore JSP, and the corresponding .java file is test underscore JSP dot Java. Just because it's a public class and the public class name should be the .java file name. Since it is a public class, public class name should be the .java file name. Understood? Since the class is public, the class name should be the .java file name. Okay, so the .java file name also will be the same. Hello, something. The JSP page name underscore JSP dot Java. Like this it will be. The JSP page name is test.jsp, then the corresponding servlet class name generated by the web server is test underscore JSP. Okay, and the .java file name is test underscore JSP dot Java. And this .java file will have a class, okay, which contains information about the JSP page. If you see here, head, in the head, body, in the body, we are writing, hello, I am in JSP page, okay, and the system.println, okay, this is the JSP page content. System.println, this is the JSP page content, okay. Whatever the JSP page content it is, okay, just that content is there inside the generated servlet class. Understood? Okay. But whatever the HTML content that we write, the HTML content, okay, will be populated into underscore JSP service method of the servlet. Sorry, generated servlet. Okay, like init service and destroy. Even the JSP also contains the lifecycle methods underscore JSP init, underscore JSP destroy, underscore JSP service. Okay, like init service and destroy for servlet. Even the JSP has 3 lifecycle methods: underscore JSP init, underscore JSP service, and underscore JSP destroy. Okay, so if you write any HTML content in the JSP page, that HTML content will go to which method? Underscore JSP service. Inside underscore JSP service, okay, that content will be printed using out.write method. Okay, if you write a HTML code or if you have a HTML content inside the JSP page, that HTML content will be printed using out.write method of, okay, underscore JSP service method. See, there are 3 methods: underscore JSP init, underscore JSP service, underscore JSP destroy inside the generated servlet. Inside the underscore JSP service method, okay, using out.write, okay, the HTML content will be printed. HTML content will be printed using out.write, in underscore JSP service method. Okay, we see here this code is there inside underscore JSP service. Okay, so if you write any HTML content in the JSP page, that HTML content will be printed in out.write of underscore JSP service. Okay. If you write any HTML content in the JSP page, that HTML content will be available inside underscore JSP service method. Okay. How that will be available inside underscore JSP service method means it will be printed using out.write method. Understood? Now the next thing is the scriptlet. If I write any scriptlet, that scriptlet will be automatically, or the scriptlet will be as it is pasted in underscore JSP service method. Okay? If you write any scriptlet in the JSP page, that scriptlet content is as it is copied and pasted into underscore JSP service method. So the scriptlet portion will be automatically copied and pasted into underscore JSP service method. Understood? Understood? What's it? Okay. The scriptlet content will be automatically copied and pasted into underscore JSP service method. Okay. Now let me do some modification so that there will be a compilation error. Let me do some modification so that there will be a compilation error. So any statement which is not ended by semicolon is a compilation error. Okay. So let me close this and let me start to refresh the browser. It is telling that there is a compilation issue with the JSP page. Okay. At some line there is some semicolon missing. Okay. Let me see that generated select code. Generated select code contains the code as it is pasted from. This code is as it is pasted. This system.out.println is as it is pasted from, or as it is copied from scriptlet portion. So this statement doesn't have any semicolon. So it is not compiled. Understood? So whatever the code that we write in scriptlet portion, it should be properly compilable. Okay? If it is not compilable, JSP page execution will give you a 500 error where it displays the compilation errors. Understood? If there is any problem or if there is any compilation problem in the JSP page, okay, a 500 exception will be displayed, okay, with the compilation problem while application is compiled, if is not compiled. Understood? Understood? So this is how the JSP page works. Now let me close it. Let me put semicolon and let me refresh the browser. So JSP is executed successful, and even the content is also printed in the console. Understood? So how the process will be means, once if we try to execute a JSP page from the browser, okay, and if it is different from the previous, if you try to execute a JSP page from the browser and if it is different from previous, what the web server will do means, web server will try to convert, or web server will try to convert the JSP page into the corresponding servlet code. Okay, how it will do means, if it is a HTML content in the JSP page, then the generated servlet, okay, the generated servlet contains that HTML content inside underscore JSP service method using out.write method. Okay, and the scriptlet content will be as it is copied into the underscore JSP service method. Okay, and the generated servlet class, okay, will be a class with the name, the JSP page name underscore JSP, and this is a public finite class. Since the JSP page name is hello, the generated servlet class name is hello underscore JSP, and this is a public finite class. Okay, and it extends to HTTP JSP page, which is a subclass to HTTP servlet. So even this hello underscore JSP is also a subclass to HTTP servlet. So we call this class as a servlet class. Okay, and it contains 3 lifecycle methods of JSP. One is underscore JSP init, underscore JSP service, underscore JSP destroy. Okay, this will reflect init, service and destroy, or this will resemble init, service and destroy methods of a JSP page. Sorry, of a servlet. Okay, underscore JSP init will be same like a init method. Underscore JSP service will be same like a service method of a servlet. Underscore JSP destroy will be same like a destroy method of a servlet. Okay, they will be used for the same purpose. Understood? So Understood how the JSP will be? Okay. This step, creation of a servlet class based on the JSP code. This step, which is done by the web server, is called as a transformation. This step is called as transformation. Or can be even called as translation. Some people will call it transformation, some people will call it as translation. The first step in the execution of JSP is transformation or translation. So, in the first step, what happens is the JSP code will be converted into the corresponding servlet code. For each and every JSP, okay, a servlet class will be generated by the web server. Okay, the servlet class name is the JSP page name underscore JSP. Okay, this is a public final class which extends to HTTP JSP page, which internally extends to HTTP server. And it has three lifecycle methods: underscore JSP init, underscore JSP service, underscore JSP destroyer, which will be the same like init service destroyer of a servlet. Okay, and this step of conversion of the content of JSP page into a corresponding servlet class, this step is called as transformation or even translation. Many of the people will call it as a translation. Okay, translation. The first step is translation. Translation of JSP content into corresponding servlet content. Or translating the JSP content into the corresponding servlet class. This is the first step. Okay, and the second step is compilation. So, we cannot execute .java files. Any server or runtime cannot execute .java files. So, once transformation is done, compilation should be done. So, this .java file will be automatically compiled by the web server itself. Okay, if you see here, in this location, this .class file exists. Okay, .class file exists. Did we perform any compilation here? No, we did not do any compilation. Okay, automatically the web server itself is generating the .java file with the select code of the JSP page, and automatically this .java file will be compiled into a corresponding .class file by the web server itself. So the second step is compilation. In the process of compilation, the .java file which is generated by the web server will be compiled by the web server itself. Okay, the compilation step also will be done by the web server itself. So, translation will be done by the web server automatically, even compilation will be done by the web server automatically. Okay, so the second step is compilation, means compilation of the generated .java file to generate a .class file. Okay? And the third step is loading. If any .class file is supposed to be executed, the .class file should be loaded into the JVM. Okay? If any .class file is supposed to be executed, that .class file should be loaded into JVM. So, the third step loading, the generated .class file will be loaded into JVM. We discussed this in the first class itself. If you want to execute a .class file, the .class file should be loaded into JVM first. So, that process will happen in the third step. In the loading step, the .class file will be loaded into the JVM. And the fourth step is execution. Okay? The .class file will be executed. Okay? And if the execution happens, it will be same like, since it is a servlet, it will be same like a servlet life cycle. Okay? Just a thread will be created which executes the service method, and the service method code will be executed. Understood? How the JSP page will be, and how the JSP page is being executed on a browser refresh, and how the changes are being reflected on a browser refresh. All these processes, we should do it manually in case of servlets. We should compile it, we should transform, or we should develop a servlet code, we should compile it, okay, and we should put it into the classes folder, and then we should restart the server, and we need to execute the application. Then only it will happen. But in case of JSP page, all these 4 steps will be done automatically. We need not to transform or translate, we need not to compile, or we need not to make it to load into the JVM, or we need not to execute. All these steps are done automatically on a browser refresh in a JSP page. Understood? How a JSP page will reflect the changes automatically on a browser refresh. It will not be done on the fly. It will not be done on the fly, but the web server will do it in the backend. Rather than we doing that, the web server will do that in the backend. Understood? And these are the 4 steps or 4 different stages in the life cycle of a JSP page. Okay? Whatever we have discussed now, which is the life cycle of a JSP page. The life cycle of a JSP page contains 4 stages. Life cycle of a JSP page contains 4 stages. The first stage is transformation or translation. Life cycle of a JSP page contains 4 stages. The first stage is transformation or translation, where the JSP page content, the first step is transformation or translation, where the JSP page content is populated inside a servlet class, where the JSP page content will be populated inside a servlet class, which is generated by the web server. Okay, in the phase of translation, a .java file will be generated. In that .java file, a servlet class is generated, and the servlet class name will be the JSP page name _ JSP, which is a public finite class which extends to HTTP JSP base and which has three methods: underscore JSP init, underscore JSP service, and underscore JSP destroy. Okay, and the content of the JSP page, okay, will be distributed in this servlet class. Okay, if it is a HTML code or a scriptlet, it will be present in underscore JSP service method. Okay, so that JSP page or the code in the JSP page or the logic in the JSP page will be translated into the corresponding servlet code in the phase of translation. The phase of translation, what happens is, first a .java file is created. That .java file, a class is created which is a public finite class which extends to HTTP JSP base, and there will be three methods: underscore JSP service, init, and underscore JSP destroy. Okay, and the HTML content and the scriptlet content will be populated inside underscore JSP service method. All this code will be generated in the translation. Understood? The next step is compilation. The translated JSP base will have a .java file. Okay? The output of translation of JSP page is a .java file. Understood? The output of JSP translation is a .java file. Understood what I am telling? The output of JSP translation is a .java file. A .java file which contains the servlet code. Okay? That .java file which is generated in the first step, translation, will be compiled in the second step, which is the compilation step. Okay? The generated .java file in translation will be compiled, okay, so that a .class file will be generated. Okay? So, the generated .java file will be compiled so that a .class file will be generated. So, that is the second step, compilation of the generated servlet class or compilation of the generated .java file, so that the output of compilation phase is a .class file. The output of compilation phase is a .class file, the servlet .class file. Understood? And the third phase is loading. So, if you want to execute any .class file, first it should be loaded into JV. So, the third step, loading the .class file, loading the generated .class file into JV. And fourth step is execution of the .class file. Understood? And on a browser refresh, if the JSP content is changed, all these four steps will happen. All these four steps will happen automatically by the web server on a browser refresh if the JSP content is changed. On a browser refresh, if the JSP content is changed, all these four steps will happen. And all these four steps will be done by the web server. We don't do anything manually here. Everything is done automatically by the web server. Understood? This is how the JSP Life Cycle is, or this is what the JSP Life Cycle is. Contains four phases: translation, compilation, loading, execution. And you need to know what happens in translation, what happens in compilation, what happens in loading, and what happens in execution. That's it. Okay? And as we told, we can write any HTML content in the JSP page. Okay? And that HTML content will be populated in underscore JSP service method. Okay? HTML content will be populated in the underscore JSP service method. Okay, in out.write. Okay, the HTML code will be populated in underscore JSP service method using out.write. Okay, and the scriptlet portion will be automatically populated, or scriptlet portion will be copied and pasted in underscore JSP service. Okay, now let me change the JSP code. Let me change the JSP code so that it will not compile. Let me change the JSP code so that it will not compile, and let me try to execute that. So that it is displaying a 500 exception, 500 error code with the compilation issues. Okay, and if you see folder, is .class file generated? Is JSP.class file generated? No. But even if there is a compilation issue, .java file is generated. If the web server tries to compile a .java file, there is a compilation issue. So .class file is not generated, and it is displaying the corresponding error inside the web browser. Okay? Yes, there is a compilation issue in this line. There is no semicolon. So I could not able to generate the .class file. Understood? This is how the JSP execution is made. And if I modify something, and if I refresh, automatically again the .class file is generated and the code is being automatically reflected. You see here, the code is being automatically reflected so that this has a semicolon at the end. Understood? This is how the JSP Life Cycle. Okay? Did all of you understand, or do I need to explain it again? All of you got how the JSP page works, or do I need to explain it again? Did you get it? Everybody? So, next thing, we are already discussing the scripting elements or scripting components in the JSP page. We have discussed about scriptlets. If you want to write any executable Java code in the JSP page, we write that executable Java code in a scripted portion. Understood? So, let me print some content from the scriptlet to the console. Sorry, from the scriptlet to the JSP page. If you want to print some content, we use out.println. Okay, let me see the select code of earlier developed servlets. What we are doing? We are creating printWriter object using response.getWriter. Okay, and we are using out.println. Let me not create this. If we don't create this, what happens? What is this telling? Out cannot be resolved. That means you should create a printWriter object. You should create a printWriter object from using response.getWriter. Then only we can print some content into the browser. Understood? Understood? So now in this scriptlet, are we creating the printWriter object? Are we creating the printWriter object? Yes or no? In this scriptlet, are we creating the printWriter object? No, we are not creating the printWriter object. Okay? Now, will it give the same error that is displayed here? Will it give the same error like this when we compile? Why? That's what I'm saying. Whatever the content that exists, whatever the content that exists here, it will be automatically copied and pasted into the generated select code. Now, are we creating any object whose reference is out? Are we creating any object whose reference is out? No, we are not creating any object whose reference is out. Okay? Then, actually, it should give a compile error. It should give a compilation error. We did not create any object with a reference out, but you are using out. It should give a compilation error. But let me try to refresh the browser and see whether it gives any compilation error or not. Is it giving any compilation error? Is the content printed in the browser? But from where we are getting this out? Okay? From where we are getting this out? We did not create it here. We did not create it here. We did not create the out object like this. We did not create out object like this. The print writer of equal to response.getWriter. Okay? Even though we did not create a print writer object with reference out, we could able to use the reference variable out, okay, to print some content to the browser. How? How it is possible? Means, if you see the generated select code, let me see where out is available. Okay, there is a reference variable out of type JSP writer. Let me see where that is initialized. Out equal to page context dot get out. That means some reference to the browser is available. Okay, some reference to the browser is available. Okay, so the JSP page, the web server, while transforming or while translating, it is even writing the logic so that a reference of the browser will be created in the generated select code. Okay, in the process of translation, the JSP content will be converted into the select content. In addition, okay, some other task also will be done. What is that? Okay, what is that means? The web server, while translating a JSP content into select content, it will convert or it will translate the content of the JSP as well as it will add some other logic. It will append some other logic. Okay, that logic will create some objects. Okay, when a JSP page is converted into a servlet, let's consider like this is a JSP page, is converted into corresponding servlet class by the web server. Okay, in this process, the JSP content will be converted into select class. Along with that, some additional content also will be available in the select class. What that additional content will do means it will create objects. It will create objects that are useful in the JSP page. Okay? Along with the JSP content, this generated select class will have some additional content, additional logic. What that additional logic will do means, it will create objects that are available or the objects that will be useful, to the JSP page. So the objects that will be useful in the scripting elements of the JSP page. That objects that are created by the web server The objects that are created by the web server, which are useful in the JSP page, are called as implicit objects. A very